All right, guys, thanks so much. Yeah, welcome to the close, guys, for a Monday. What a reversal Monday as well. We had some pretty negative connotations going into the morning, pretty negative look as far as stocks were concerned going into the morning, but big bounce underway. 2.2% now for the Dow, back in positive territory, and then some. 1.5 there for the S&P, full percent for the NASDAQ, lagging ever so slightly, but much better than when we first started this morning. The TSX, a full percent here in Toronto. Brazil's up 1.5%. Yeah, look at crude. I just noticed they're 4.25% back to the upside for oil. Bitcoin still down, but off the lows. Look at Ethereum as well, trying to go positive on the day. Didn't think we were going to talk about that. Here's a look at the S&P 500. It is the travel stocks. We talked about it if you joined us right off the bat this morning. Travel stocks are leading to the upside. Norwegian 11.5% in positive territory. I thought they found 10 cases of COVID on one of their ships, but oh well, 10.25% there for RCL, CCL, LVS, Expedia, to name a few. Here's the airlines down here, 10% for UAL, AAL, and Dow. They were top of the watch list this morning, 10% moves across the board. Even the regional airlines, Alaskan and Love, Delta down there, having a nice day. Banks are strong, healthcare is strong. Tech is showing a little bit of strength here late in the day, but still some weakness coming through from the semiconductors in particular. Intel, the standout there, 3.8%. To the upside. Everything else pretty weak. Software names are higher as well. Consumer staples down here showing some strength today. Yeah, 4% for crude oil. There's energy stocks also having a nice day. Quickly show you the NASDAQ here as we head into the final 2 hours of the day. If my platform wants to cooperate. I keep telling Robbie we need Jeopardy music for this thing, but yeah. You get the picture. It's pretty positive. Welcome, guys. It's the last 2 hours of trading here. As we do, we'll kick things off with a little bit of a look back at some of the opportunities that we were talking about. If you joined us in the pre-market, join us every day at 8:30. We go over everything that is moving around in the pre-market and come up with a game plan for you when we get to the open at 9:30. We're going to kick things off with Neil is going to review one of his trades from this morning.
Yes, we're going to talk a little bit about Lucid and review it, and I know Arun is not doing this, but there's a bit of an Arun twist for this particular trade. So came in, SEC investigation on Lucid, negative, market looking weak, you had all that going on here. And just to jump to the higher time frame, I kind of highlighted this 42 level, a previous high, a little bit of broken support here, but for the most part, a pretty decent area to have been held. So when I came and sat down, the reason why I went back and looked at that level was we had this pop gapping down. Lucid was down well over 15% in the pre-market. It had made a bit of a bottom at 39.5 and pushed up, and then you had this high at 42, and that's what I was looking at when I sat down. That was the only level at 42. We had some confirmation of previous support there at 42. And then I'm saying to myself, what do I want to do? I want to short in front of 42. Now, we did have a pre-market execution a little bit early, and I said, let's calm down here. We got to wait for a real test of that level. And a lot of times, you know the setup I like. It's that pop and drop kind of idea. And that's exactly what we get. Right when the market opens up at 9:30, we get a push. It does not get to that 41 level. We get about half in. And then when it fails shy of 41.50, we get right back in, double it up, take a full position on. And at that point, it's about load management, right? So take some shares out 40, 39.5, 39, and then ultimately down at 38. Now, with a 38 level, you can look back in the daily here and you'll see this wick, which actually is well above that 38. So once we got down to that price, I was simply thinking, if it even has numbers on it, then we're going to just jump out of it. The other thing that was happening was Rivian. Rivian was putting a double bottom in at exactly $100. And the last thing I wanted to see was Rivian hold 100 and then snap back up. I saw size in the bid at 38 and Rivian was holding 100, get out of position. It comes all the way back, and this is where it's fun, right? It gives you another chance at that 42. I get a couple of legs in, but this time I'm thinking cover a bunch in front of VWAP because that is a wipeout bottom. This is a retest of that high. This is now the third time it has tested that high. I'm taking it through. If it tested a fourth, do I like it? No, I don't like it. Now, on the live show, I said I'm not reversing. A certain somebody, his name is Arun, said, I'm reversing long at 42. So while I'm showing you the stop, You're going to go back to the well multiple times. Yes, it's going to be a great trade, but your last one is going to be a loser unless you reverse it long. I just want to show you how clean this is. When it took out that 42 key level, the coils like this, sometimes you just got to be able to reverse. I did not, or you'd see some outs here at 44. Thankfully, Arun did and showed that to you guys live, but let us know how you did. A lot of names did this pattern off the open. Couple of things you can be looking for. If you're bullish on them, like maybe you were bullish on some of the tech names that made this pattern, did you get along? I was looking short because of Lucid's news. That worked out as well, but there were plenty of ways to play this kind of a setup, whether it's long or short, breaking out when it makes that reversal. Either way, you've got to take advantage of these movers. Lucid was one of those, and there's been no shortage of movers like this throughout the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's been an amazing reversal right across the board this morning. For a lot of stocks. Here's one that, this is the NASDAQ, if you're wondering. I finally got it to load. Moderna. I wanted to show you Moderna here. 16% to the downside today, having quite the day. Amgen there, 3.7%. Some of the Chinese stocks I noticed, including Baidu, 6.25% back in positive territory. Alibaba was higher on the day. They were talking about revamping their management when it came to the e-commerce side of things. There's the tech sector, Intel leading in the semiconductor group. Some of the travel names over here, Booking.com, Marriott, T-Com, just to name a few. Wanted to make sure we got that in. Now we can talk about this. We'll go over some of, as I mentioned, the opportunities we were given this morning. If you joined us first thing, that is the watch list, guys. Make sure you grab the absolutely free watch list every single day. Miss V in the chat will help you out with the link. X Sigma bringing you the watch list this week. What a bounce right across the board, as we saw there with Lucid. One note on Lucid, guys. Justin, Day Trade the World marketing guy, coming through about 2:50 in, what time is it? 40-ish minutes or so. And we'll talk more about that Lucid investigation with Justin coming up, so don't go anywhere for that. Let's jump into Moderna here, guys. The vaccine names in general right across the board kind of going in different directions. J&J having a really nice day. Pfizer as well, not as bad, but Moderna, huge move down here.
Yeah, you kind of know one thing about Moderna, and the reason why we've been talking about that as like a shorting vehicle, and sadly enough didn't have it today, and I don't think I had too good of an excuse. I had none. Well, it was looking at too many names, and we love Lucid, and it's a good setup. And Moderna, the only difference is Moderna followed through. On negative news, Moderna just simply is going to follow through when it comes to the other vaccine name, relative to the other vaccine names. So that's what's going to happen here. Now, that's the difference between it and Pfizer. It's going to move a heck of a lot more to the upside when it's positive. J&J, there were a couple of studies out there showing, hey, you do the J&J booster after Pfizer, and it'll be actually better for you. We just saw that here in Canada, so maybe that's another reason why it's doing well. But this was about as clean as it got for just an absolute drop like a rock scenario. Now, it didn't really test that 300 level to the top. Otherwise, I think there's a good chance I would have been involved here. But ultimately, you look at what's going on the higher time frame. It did make an attempt to try and hold the 200 period moving average, but once again has crushed through. And the last time it got down here, it didn't exactly stop till we got to 200. So you're back into crappy territory. I don't know what's good to say about it here on a day the market is strong for Moderna. And you'd like to see it try to claw back. If you're positive, if you're bullish on this thing, you're going to want to try to see it claw back above 263, that 200 period moving average, maybe close above it. But a close below here is going to be definitely weak. Just all kinds of trouble here for Moderna. It had been a nice little comeback it put in, and holding above that 300 also meant the chance to retake the 50 period moving average. Obviously, that's not happening anytime soon, as you can guess. If we don't make that close, 263, I think 250 is definitely looming if this does follow through. The notion that this new variant is not necessarily going to be as lethal or as dangerous. Maybe not the best news for Moderna here, especially because just about everything is tied up in these vaccines for them.
Personally, when I was talking about Moderna in the morning show, I personally am not a good trader with Moderna specifically, but I do like other names. So when things start moving in one sector, I start going to other names that I know I can trade well. NVAX was my trade for today on the vaccine players. NVAX break, you see the consolidation. I chose 155, or actually it was around 156 or so. For anyone who missed the morning trade, 156 break, so I took the 155 something. 155.97, I think it was, the short, and then got some out at 148 and then 146 and change. That was my trade. And once that was done, that happened. I got short early, around 8:45, got out by 9:40. It was about an hour and change, and then walked away from it. And sometimes you got to do that. You just make your trade, call your shot, and then you just get out. For me, I'm just better with NVAX. So that was a nice little winner for me. It was around, I think I averaged around $8-9 on that trade. So for me, I was done. I'm not going to go to NVAX, or not NVAX. I'm not going to go to Moderna just because I'm not that great with Moderna. My track record with Moderna isn't the greatest. So choose where you want to get out. And I think for me, NVAX was the play. And it was pretty straightforward. If you caught this move, then you could have caught the Moderna move as well. But Moderna would have given you a little bit more just because there's a lot more names and a lot more eyes on that stock per se. And there's going to be more volatility. That's expected. But I think for this read, I think I'm happy with the winner that I have there. So I can walk away from that as well.
All right, a few things we'll keep an eye on here as we continue along. CPIX, X, that is, just popping up on volume alert there. ISIG also moving. I want to talk about some of these Trump-connected stocks today, including CFVI, which is, of course, the Rumble SPAC that we learned about last week. So they confirm, DWAC confirms the $1 billion pipe is complete. We got that in the pre-market this morning, and then this came out about halfway through the morning or so. Financial regulators looking into DWAC and the Trump media tie. So it's both the SEC and the FTC coming through with an investigation on this. But CFEI, the more active of the two currently.
Yeah, and this is one that, I'm sort of thankful the way things went. On Thursday, if you guys watched the morning show, and if I mentioned this this morning as well, that, picked up a falling sword on CFVI on Thursday, and it did a very, very similar thing. Let me show the 15 minutes so you guys get a better idea. This is what it did on Thursday, that big drop. It did a similar thing. You're gapping up. You think it could be a breakout. I've got the long in front of 14. I'm able to get some out in front of 15 here, thinking, we're sitting pretty. The difference is when it made that push down at 9 o'clock, I just stopped myself out. I said, I'm not going to hold on to it. I'm not going to average in when it pulls back. And then I went into short mode because I saw what happened on Thursday. So, it did the patented move where you're going to get the press at the open. And I could have had, look, I got in at 14.50. I think it was maybe Vivek in the chat, and saying, well, you got in early on this, and you're absolutely right. Usually, I never want to short into a lower high between 9.25 and 9.30. If it's pressing, I want to see it fail. I end up getting in. I stop out here. It then does the patented fail break. I just jump right back into the trade when it comes right up and down. And instead of getting long, I'm now getting short. Now, it was a great short. We added to it a couple of times here, got out at $12, but it just made a strong, strong move. Double bottom off 12, breakout at VWAP. I shorted it off at this level here at 14. It was pretty good, got down to 13.20, then got stopped out the rest at 14 even. So it's still profitable trade. Now I'm just thinking 15.50, right? Like we just go to this double top here at 15.50. If it gets to that price, that's the only level I'd fade. It's got to hold VWAP for me to want to take a long up here. I just kind of feel, it didn't break out twice in day of when it had that news. It failed to do it on Thursday. It failed to break out here today. So if I'm playing into the long side, it's got to be breaking the high of the day. Like one of these times it actually has to follow through. Otherwise, I think I want to be playing the short on CFVI until it makes that break. And once again, like if you just took that 14.50, no reason to. It's just the fact that it's every even or every 50 cent level seems to work on this stock. I'm going to wait for 15.50 personally. But even if you took that, you have a nice little scalp trade to the south side. I think patience is the way to go here. If you are a bull, worth noting that there was some buyers, I guess, down at this level at 13.20. As it starts to fall again, maybe it catches a bit there.
For me, CFVI was one of those names I was kind of keeping an eye on around 15, but once we got a little messy, we kept going up, coming back underneath. I kind of just moved aside and went on to different things. I have other trades on. You may see me only in Roblox, but I've actually got the futures position as well. Let me go over that, because somebody in the chat was asking me, would I go short at 46.10? No, I wouldn't. The reason why, though, I'm long at 45.72. So anyone who saw the first part of the show, the morning show, remember I was trying to get these 76 longs. I got them, and then when the market went to new highs and came back underneath, I dumped them, made like a point, and then got a better price. I just repriced my long from 76 to 72. And then here I am, 72, got some out at 82, and then got some out in front of the 4600s, and I got some out in front of 4610. So I'm getting them out in piece by piece. I've still got some more, so I'll keep carrying them until we can, as far as I can really take them. So another position I just got out of as well, CAT. I talked about this trade. Once we cleared 200, as long as we got some support, I was going to go for the long. Got some longs at 200, just over 250. And then dumped to some just underneath 201.80. Accidentally punched out here around the 206, 202.60 area, got it back, and then just dumped it in front of the 203 mark. So that's done. And PG was one of those trades I was carrying from this morning as well, from 150, got some out in front of 152, just dumped the last piece just below 150, 160. And as far as the trade is going, I've only got two trades. I've got the ES position still going, and I've still got the rest of Roblox. Well, I've got all of Roblox, actually. I never got out at any point. Brendan?
Let's talk about stock price a little bit, guys. One of the more common questions we've been getting of late, anyways, is about stock prices. And for those who are just starting out in the markets, what is the best price level that they should be looking at when it comes to first starting out trading? Should you be looking at penny stocks? Should you be looking at that, kind of $5 to $25 range? Should you be looking at anything above that? So we're going to go over 3 different price levels in this video and discuss a little bit about what to expect when it comes to trading 3 different types of stocks.
Absolutely. And look, the first things first, you mentioned penny stocks there, Brendan. I want to start, I want to talk about lower price names. And I'm going to go with something like a Ford here. And you'll say, okay, well, Ford trades, $19 to $20. It previously traded in those teams. I think it's the perfect pocket for that. When it comes to the really small caps, under $10, even penny stocks, they're almost in a category of their own. And I think they would deserve their own talk. But when you think about something like a Ford, it has that perfect blend of enough volatility that there's going to be gross winners on it. You can see it tends to work in good trends. It tends to respect a lot of the technicals. The other thing you're going to concern yourself with is solid liquidity. Right, you're always going to find, and these every single lot you see on level 2 here, these are 100-share lots, so sort of multiply each by 100. But you're going to see, anywhere from 20, 30,000 shares per level. When it gets to an even level like a 1950, like a $20 or 19 even, you're going to find hundreds of thousands of shares available. Just all kinds of liquidity that allows you to scale. You will never be worried about a liquidity, almost never worried about a liquidity vacuum on this type of a stock. While at the same time, you're going to be able to benefit from solid price movement. So when I pull up like a 15-minute chart of Ford, it's not barcoding on you. It's still going to give you like today, when a lot of stocks did this, these wipeout bottoms. It gets a hard break through 19 even, makes a bottom in front of 1850, and then you're going to see a 19 to 1950 type of move. So when you talk about respecting those quarters, those evens, it'll give you that look. It'll give you the liquidity to leverage up on your shares. It's never quite it's never quite going to give you those crazy moves where it's going to halt on you. Obviously nothing is impossible. So I should start by saying that as well. But you'll never have to worry about getting halted on something like this. Where if I did take some random $5 stock that also does volume, a lot of times there is liquidity risk that those are going to halt, which is a separate category. So for a beginner, something like Ford, which really respects those even levels. I mean, look at this double top, 2050, right? That 1850 here. Sometimes keeping it a little bit more simple with the cheaper names, and thus going to that $15 to $20 price target for something like a Ford, or maybe like NIO when it trades 25, 30 as well, right in the pocket of room.
Yeah, and then you step up. Like you have Ford on the low price side, and then you go up a little bit. You're like, okay, maybe I want to trade something that's a little bit higher price. Where would you go? I personally, and this is when how I started as well. When one of the few stocks that I started with, one of the names, Citigroup. It's just one of those financial names. You're going to get that volatility in the event that the Fed talks or says something, so you get that kind of action. Then you also just get general strength or weakness in the sector as a whole, because banking is important as part of the trading world and as part of the economy. So Citigroup is one of those names that I like to choose to trade. I mean, Citigroup, BAC, you have these names you can pick from, but I personally choose Citigroup just because it's just one of those names that you get consistent action, consistent movement. There's going to be volatility at times, But apart from that, you're going to get stability. I think that's what matters. And for me, Citigroup is one of those names that represents that. And I've traded it well. I mean, it's only done 0.5%. It's up 33 cents today. But at the same time, it's all about, just like any other stock, you've got to pick your levels, pick the levels that you want to work with, and take your shots when they're there. Let's just say, going back to Friday, you see this resistance here. If we were kind of looking to fade 64 with a 64.50 stop, you got to put 50 cents in risk. What are you going to get? $1? Maybe you're going to get 2 times a return on a $60 name. I think that's quite well. That's a quite good payout. So Citigroup is my personal preference in terms of trading banking names. It does like 17 million shares. It's done 17 million today alone, and we're still about 2 hours from closing. So it's going to get some volatility towards the end as well. So you get volume, you get stability, and you get to participate in the volatility whenever the Fed wants to open his mouth and say something.
Let's go to the extreme high end of the range now. So we talked about that kind of $5 to $25 range. We get into the mid-range stocks. We're going to show you now one that is on the extreme high end of the range. I'm going to give you a tool that can help you out as well. And I'm talking about Chipotle Mexican Grill, guys. This is a $1,600 stock. So again, we're going right off the charts when it comes to price level. Down at the bottom of the screen here, I simply added ATR, which is average range, right? So we're talking about the average daily range that is traded in a stock. When you are talking about the forwards, you're looking at maybe 30 to 50 cents. You get into the Citigroups or any of the banks for that matter, you might get $2, $3. You get into this range, and look at this average true range right now is at $44.75. That's in one day. So this stock you can expect to trade in a range that ranges between maybe $40 and $45 over the past little while. You can see it gets up to an extreme up here of $55 in a single day. So when you're looking at the risk profile of a stock like this, you can immediately kind of expand your range here way out to the extremes to a point where even the spread on a stock like this can be $5 or $6. So if you're trying to aggressively punch long by lifting an offer, you can expect to be instantly out of the money by $4, $5, $6, which, 10 cents, that's a significant amount of money for some people. So understand the liquidity, as the guys were talking about, understand the range that a stock can potentially trade, and you get a good idea of where your account size will fit the best within these kind of 3 ranges. Hope that helps, guys, when it comes to 3 different stock prices for beginners. Let's talk a little bit about some more opportunities, guys. Heading into the close here, Rivian, I wanted to mention. We had it was Initiation Monday on Rivian apparently, because this was the initial news headline that I saw, which was at 6:06 a.m. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on here. It turned out there was 9 total before the open, initiating price targets and coverage on Rivian. So a great opportunity after holding that 100 level for Rivian again.
Oh,
held all right.
So, I mean, look, we talked about this when we were trading Lucid this morning, that one of the reasons for covering, and it looks so random to have been able to be like, hey, I got the bottom on Lucid at 38. I mean, it had everything to do with Rivian 100. I mean, Tesla at the same time, too, was kind of catching a bit of a bid as well. But, it had everything to do with that exactly 100 hold in the pre-market. And then just, 100, I think, and 25 cents got put in as low of the day. And once I'd missed that, because, quite frankly, looking at a lot of names I was trading 5 or 6 names at the open. I just couldn't find my way into Moderna. I couldn't find my way into a few others at that time. And Rivian was definitely going to be one. And I wasn't really looking for the long. I was looking to play the short. And I said I like short at 112. You're going to see I did eventually get that filled. This is what I was talking about here. I just said if it goes back to that Thursday top, which also coincided with, I guess Friday's little flush at the open, right at that 112 level. This top here is 112.50 that I wanted it. And it finally made that move where it broke, goes through that 112, fails at 112.50, that level from Thursday. And it was a good short all the way to VWAP almost, so we took it in and out. But it's about being patient with it. Certainly could have been trying to short it off of this high at 107.5. Could have been trying 110, but I went to the higher time frame and said, wait. When you miss some of those bottoms in the morning, there were lots of great shorts where you'd get a huge move. But if you missed the long at the bottom, you just had to wait for either a clean breakout, which I didn't think I liked the breakout here. I liked it in Docusign better, or just wait for a top to be made on something like Rivian, which is still right in that pocket. There's no levels I love up here. I mean, we're right back at that 112.50 area, and there's nothing I really like here. I mean, 114 is not terrible. We didn't even get there, right? You have 114 to 115 you could play off of, and then next stop here up at 118 to maybe like 118.5 or so. So patience is the name of the game, specifically for Rivian. If you were just eyeballing that 980 level fail break on Tesla in the pre-market, and then 100 even holding on Rivian, a lot of times on those capitulation type of days, when levels like that don't break, they lead to humongous reversals. And I'm gonna be thinking about this one on the trade ride home, because 100 long looks awfully good when you watch this chart here. And look, I'm not going to complain about the morning because it did go well, but the absence of an attempt at a long, it just to be able to have a stop at 100 even and go long at like 125, like that's what you look for as a day trader a lot of times. I just wish I had that one in the belt here today.
It looks a lot easier than it would have been.
It's true. Yeah.
The long looks great off of 100 because it worked out. If you had gone long and it ran right through, you wouldn't be getting out for $1. Highly unlikely, given the amount of activity you're going to get through 100 even. It was a name that we were looking at earlier, but I was looking at, when we were coming in, we looked at Rivian 100, but then I went to Lucid as the trade, because that trade actually set up for me first. So that's what I was playing, Lucid instead of Rivian. Just a couple things I want to clear up here. There was a question regarding futures, and because that's my major position left that I've got. Oh, I've got Roblox as well. Somebody was asking, how much do the futures contracts cost? Well, it's usually, let me pull this up here real quick. Whatever this is 4,605 times 50. So it's going to be north of $225,000 or $235,000, it might be. And as a firm, we do have to pay in like straight up. We don't get the margin. I think at brokers, they take like 20,000 to allow you to trade one contract. So every point represents 50 points, $50. So if you have access to it, just be aware that that's the specs on the contract. And if you ever have any questions, always just go to CME Group, and you can always look up their specs, the contract specs. So every quarter point it moves. It's $12.50, and the contract unit is 50 times the price of the contract, right? So any questions, just always go there, and you can learn more about the futures. They do offer a micro contract as well, which is a tenth of the value. So if it's $50 for the full or for the E-minis, it'll be $5 for a full point on the micro contracts, which is, I think, more geared towards retail and everyone just starting out. You can either trade the spiders or the micro contracts as well, the MES contract, if you're starting out. This can get very expensive very quickly if you're wrong. Obviously, if you're right, that's a different story. But if you're wrong, and as a beginner, as you're just starting to trade futures contracts or just futures in general, it gets very expensive very quickly because futures moves, a few points at a time. And if your account can't handle that kind of movement, it's going to be very expensive. So just be aware that there are starting contracts, specifically the MES contract, that allows you to trade and learn how to trade the futures, because it's a different type of environment that you're going to be playing with, and you have to learn as well. So for now, I guess the cap position I dumped. Great timing on that because I dumped it at 203. So we're going to walk away from this. PG done. We just got to figure out what to do with Roblox because that is now $1.38 in the money. I've had this trade for a while. Look at this trade. I got this right here, 112 around 1035. It came all the way down to 109 and change. The stop on this was 108. So this is from the morning show. So I'm just kind of carrying it forward because I had no reason to get out of it. Now I'm going to start to cut some risk on this trade because I think I can move the stop up, because if it were to fail one more time, I shouldn't be long anymore. So we're going to move the stop up to just south of 112.50, see if we can protect some of this, at least lock in maybe 30, 40 cents or so. And the other position I've got, like I mentioned to you guys, futures, right? I'm long here at 72. We've got some out along the way. We got some out in front of 10 as well. And going back to the earlier question regarding would I go short here, I mean, you can make arguments for small micro trades in between the range. But again, because I'm positioned a certain way, I'm always going to let it flex a little bit or to the downside a little bit before I decide to go for the long again. So what I'm doing is managing this, which may be slightly different from the way if you would be looking at it if you were trying to get into a position, right? So I'm not looking to go short, but at the same time, I can see this market, if it wanted to come off a little bit, I can see that space. It has space to come off. So if you can find a reason to go short around this price point, it kind of makes sense. Because why? Well, the major level we're looking at is 46.20, and that level has been in play for a few days now. And this market has space to go to the downside as long as 46.20 isn't broken. So if this market were to rotate down, I'd probably get out of my short and get out of my long and go into a short, but that's not going to be for another 20 points or so. So you see the kind of space I'm giving it. I'm up 36 points, but I got to give it 20 points just to let it breathe and see if they can take this 46.20 high. So it's a delicate operation on whether you flip or you let it go, and sometimes you got to be willing to let it come back a lot more than you would normally let it, because the futures kind of operates in its own little environment. The way it moves, it doesn't move like stocks move, right? So you got to give it a little bit more flex.
Yeah, and it's like I love Arun very calmly describing like the big boy style trades, and like trading the futures is not a simple thing to do. Always take advantage when Arun's here is what I got to say. But before we continue here, Brendan, I want to jump to ISIG just because I got a quick fill here. It's halted several times. You can count them up if you want. On the way up, but the last halt was right here at 14.25 upside. It then tested, did a failed break at 15 even. This is your 15 even level. The last time it got up here, so you have a failure at the same level at the daily chart. You have a consolidation here at the previous halt up price, and it also had a lower level consolidation in front of 14.50. I've shorted that lower level here at 14.15. I'm not giving it to 15 even. I'm just give it to like 14.50 here in case it can roll back over 12.50 to 13 first target, and then maybe down to this 11.50, not even VWAP here. So it's a relatively tight stop, only about 35 cents in slippage that I'm willing to give it. But again, you're going counter trend here. I just like the fact that it's a failed break at that previous level on the daily chart. So this, I got BFRI, but it's not moving around too much there. That was one that moved earlier today as well. I'm short in front of a 420-ish area. I'll give it to 440. But just a couple of shorts for me. Not really any longs, despite the fact that the market's booming here, Brendo.
Yeah, a lot of opportunities to the upside today. Neil started off this segment at 2 o'clock talking about a lot of charts looking like this. Here's Coinbase, another one. Gave you a huge flush off the open and then immediately reverses, and we're now back to, well, almost positive anyways. Down 0.3 there you saw for Coinbase, guys, after that weekend move in Bitcoin. We also saw, if you joined us at 2 o'clock, Ethereum trying to go positive here on the day. Where are we? I think we are actually positive on the day, ever so slightly for Ethereum as well. So, you combine all those different facts, and I mean, even Coinbase gives you a really nice opportunity to the long side today.
Yeah, I think if you were hunting for the bottoms, you had to find a level that you really like, so that when you see the falling sword come in, you can jump all over it. And Coinbase, it did fall into that category. So like I said, I wrote that on my iPad, and the first number I wrote down was 244, and it's nothing complicated. Just go back to the daily chart. The last level of consolidation was right here at 244. And then all the madness of the open happened. CFEI is moving, and that was a great trade. And Lucid's moving, and that was a great trade. And it's just, you can't catch everything. So even though I had levels I liked for the dip buy on Coinbase, and it came right into it at 240, I mean, it doesn't get any prettier than that. Right to the level you want on a wipeout bottom, clean $10 move, and then it makes a turn. And you don't have to have this at 244. You can get the first consolidation at 46, or maybe you can catch it when it retakes 250 for a scalp trade. It's just more about noticing where the bigger levels are. But one of the things Arun and I were talking about over lunchtime is, if it's not on your radar during your prep, you're never catching that move. Either you have alerts set up for it. Plug Power was another one that Plug bounced. I think it was off the 200 period moving average, just gorgeously this morning. It was like, if you weren't looking at it, it doesn't really make a difference. So you have to narrow your list down to the stocks that are trading around the levels that you like. The flip side here is you had to be watching over at spot prices in Bitcoin to make sure that you're not gonna step in front of maybe it's breaking, Bitcoin breaking 46,000. Had it done that, you don't want to be catching that 244 bottom. That didn't happen here, but you want to make sure you're prepared for that. While all this is going on, sorry, I know we're going over the trade here, but ISIG just made a bit of a move here. I got more shares actually at 14.25 when it retested 50. This is it here retesting that level, failing to break, and so I added to it on the way down. Now I can get a little bit more aggressive in front of 13. So just gonna pop some bids in here and then see if we can't take this first down there and then down to like 12.50. But again, if it wasn't for the failure at 15 even on the daily chart, then I probably wouldn't be into this short, but ISIG started to come back and up 175%. But like I said, I don't like the long up here after it failed broke at 15 even.
Going back to coin, we were looking at coin earlier, and I remember putting some levels down, or not levels, but like putting some areas down that I wanted to keep an eye on. I think 272 right here. 272 is an area that I want to keep an eye on. Regardless, it wasn't in play this morning. It was just, we were about, what, 25 bucks away at the time. But now here we are at 266 and change going into that 270. Keep an eye on 272. If we're going to fail, if we're going to rotate through, it's going to be somewhere here. If we get above 272, I think you have some decent strength to work with. So coin around this 266 going on up to 272 could provide a short opportunity. It all depends on how it decides to kind of turn, if it even turns. Another name that actually I was looking at, somebody in the chat put it, and then I was looking at this, I'm like, oh yeah. This was NVIDIA. It came off on the radar earlier, and I was telling Neil, I'm like, he just broke 295 during lunchtime. Remember we were about an hour ago?
Yeah, why didn't I take that?
Yeah, I don't know. 295. And then I was looking at it, and I was like, oh yeah, that looks like a decent long. But the reason I didn't take it is because I couldn't figure out what the risk on this trade was, right? If it's a 295 long, where's my stop? It could be south of 286, maybe around 286.50. I wasn't sure, but there was upside potential. The level was there, the setup was there, and obviously it's great to see that it's up $5 from that entry point. But at the same time, sometimes you got to pass these trades off. If the risk ends up being too high and you can't figure it out, you don't need to take everything. You just got to take what fits within the risk parameters and the setup. So even if it sets up, if it doesn't fit within the risk parameters, you need to kind of just pass this trade off, and that's kind of what I did with NVIDIA here. It was there. At 295, it was there. Obviously, clear strength. You do have to worry about what's going to happen north of 300, though. Around this 302, you see a decent amount of selling from, what is this, the 5th, the 3rd, so it would have been Friday. So decent amount of selling through this 302 in front of this 300. So obviously, between 300 going on up to about 310, there's going to be some resistance. There's volume there. There's volume for waiting there. So there's going to be some resistance here. So even if it continues to go, it's going to be a slow grind, I would imagine, until we get past 210, at which point it can open up a little bit. So for now, though, NVIDIA down 2.3% on a strong uptrend, and looks like the futures may want to do a little bit of a move to the downside. Here's the one thing I would say about the futures, though. It's 2:38 right now in the afternoon Eastern time. We've gone straight up. We haven't come down, and that means profit taking hasn't been done. So at some point, I would imagine there's going to be a wave of selling coming down on this market as a whole. That could happen in the next hour. Any point, though, within the next hour. We saw this late in the session on Friday, where the buying came in. I want to say in the final. Let me get this out of the way. The buying came in right here. Where was it? It came in around 320 or so. That's where the buying came in after having gone down all day. We saw the profit-taking buys come in late in the session with about 40 minutes to go, and we haven't seen anything come through the board just yet. So there's entirely a situation where this market kind of maybe puts in a high north of 46. Right now the high is 46.1175. We could easily put in a new high, maybe around 46.12 or something like that, and then sells come in as profit taking needs to be done. That's what concerns me. So I'm down. Obviously, I'm getting out of my position in pieces, but I'm down to a small enough position where I can be content with the event of that happening if it were to happen. In the rare case that it actually doesn't happen and just keeps on going, yeah, at least I'm participating in that as well.
All right, I just wanted to mention for a few people who are wondering maybe about this one, ISIG guys, there was a strategic alternative review, so they're looking to see what they can do going forward for ISIG. On that NVIDIA note, there's also Apple, which was a little telling, I think, right out of the gate this morning. We saw that huge move to the downside initially when the market opened in the overall market, and Apple was kind of just hanging out up here, up about 3% at the time. So maybe a little bit telling there for the overall market, what ends up being a nicely positive day. Apple up 2.3% still.
Yeah, the only thing that, I mean, obviously isn't as great is that Apple's pulled back from the highs and is now essentially barcoding. So, while you are extending a little bit and right at the highs in the NASDAQ, you have to remember, I guess the secondary push overall was in some of the more beat up names that made those wipe out bottoms, right? Like those are the names that have been sort of carrying the way, the things that were overall weaker in the tech with the higher valuation names. So I guess it's not surprising, but it's still outperforming overall Apple, which is a good sign. It's going to be one of your bellwether type of names here for sure. I don't know that I see a trade particularly in Apple, but you really don't want to see 165 get taken back out. I think that's one of those signs that, hey, we could be selling off and some profit taking could come in. I do have to, just not to change the subject, but to change the subject, the ISIG hit first target and started to bounce back up here. What I want to see is this cluster here in the previous high of day back at 1 o'clock at 14. Would love to see this hold. If this doesn't hold, I think it's probably taking out this 1450 area. Now, I'm not going to adjust just yet. If it were to come back down, fail to break this 1340 area another time, I might tighten the stop up to 14 at that point, consider taking some profit. But there's no reload now, like not with it failing to break further down. I'm not going to reload this trade in front of 1450. If it breaks that high, I'm out. I'm not even giving it to 15 even. I'm just going 1450 as a stop on ISIG. Counter trend, I don't want to turn a winning trade into a loser here. Usually not a good thing. And a lot of people have asked about LGVN, so I also wanted to quickly jump over to that. I wish I was looking at this weird 2030 level here. 2030 here is the bottom, 2030. Then it broke this level and goes clean down through 20, now at 1970. I'm not going to chase it, but that's the kind of thing. If you find something which puts in a couple of capitulations and lower highs, then breaks double support, quick little in and out trade, probably gave you 50 cents, but I'm not going to chase Longeveron.
Well, going back to Apple, man, that was okay. This is again, Apple's the largest weight. From last I checked, it is the largest weight in in the NASDAQ index. I could be wrong because Microsoft may have taken over that, but it is it's in the top two. It's either Microsoft or Apple. It's the top weight. It's somewhere around 10 or 11% of the NASDAQ 100. So when Apple decides to go in one direction, markets will go. But the thing with Apple, though, Apple was doing this off the open. It wasn't the greatest of movement, but it was strong. It wasn't solid as it looks here because the market did fall off here. You saw the NASDAQ futures fall off about 100 points or so after the open, but that's probably a result of the other names in the index that drove it down. So you do have to be aware that although Apple has the largest weight, it can't single-handedly keep the index up if the other top weights are going to drive the market down. But Apple has held up resiliently, and it is decent strength here through 165. So you cannot ignore the fact that there's going to be potentially a long here on Apple. Let me pull it off on the other chart here. There's going to be potentially a nice little long here south of 165. I would imagine the stop is going to be somewhere around 163 or so. That should give you more than enough space to work with to the downside, or enough space to work with for the upside here. Between 165 and 163, there should be some sell side volume as I watch the futures fall off. So whoever was thinking about going short north of 46.10, that would have been a great price. But again, I'm playing a different way. I'm kind of position trading this, right? So if you were going for the scalp, that would have worked out for 10 points. But I'm actually just giving up some of my profit because I'm trying to hold on to this trade because I don't see a reason yet to get out of the rest of my longs. So I'll just hold on and see how far this decides to go. If it keeps on going, then we may have to cut the rest of this futures trade. But Apple, 165, south of 165, there's a potential there for a long rotation all the way down to 163. Obviously, it gets below 163, then you have to worry about, okay, well, now what are we doing? We're probably going to be range trading on Apple until we figure out which direction to break. But for now, though, just keep an eye on that 163 as potential support that we can actually use for a long.
And
now. Go ahead.
No, sorry. A lot of people were mentioning Docusign there, and I just noticed that. Sorry, I'm going to look to take some more profit on this ISIG, but Docusign just broke a 141 level here into the downside. So I just wanted to quickly show, remember 140 was a pretty interesting level. On Friday, it was also a good breakout price, but I would not touch, with the market rolling over from the high, I wouldn't touch 140 for support. It didn't really work on the way down on Friday very well, but it certainly worked on the way back up. I'd be looking, it's hard to see, but this 130, if you're short, if you did short this, I didn't get it. If you're short this 137 to 137.50 in around here, it was the top end of the range at 930. It then ended up being pullback support at 140. So 137 seems like an interesting target if you're hunting for that short trade. I think closer to VWAP and then giving it to 142, this double bottom from earlier in the day is the way I would play it, as opposed to just punching a 140 short. But anyways, I just noticed Docusign. I saw people talking about it and wanted to throw that in there with the market pulling back a little bit here, Brendo.
I just wanted to mention this. I saw a couple of people talking about Taco once again. So Jack in the Box picking up Del Taco for $575 million. Neil, you want to run over this? Because we are above now that 51 price.
Yeah, I did mention a couple of times that this is not, it didn't fall on the list of names. Ooh, I didn't even put on my, a lot of times I don't put the buyouts on my watch list or on my quote board, simply because I don't anticipate those show type trades. Now, there is a 4-cent quarterly dividend that does get paid out on this stock, so it's a $12.51 cash price. But that, if it takes a couple of quarters, I think I said this in the morning, if it takes a couple of quarters for this to close, it's going to get paid out a couple of times. That could add to why it's getting a bit of a premium here above there. And I was short one time, and then I realized once I saw the dividend, I'm like, I don't even want to play this. I could have gone to the long side. It's not going to move a heck of a lot, and I don't think it's worth the risk trading above the price, because at any moment you could actually have it, come back down, trade below the bid price. Time value of money usually eventually affects these things, unless there's rumors of a higher bid, which I have not seen. If there are, of course, then that's a reason why you could hold up. But you'll see these gap up and be doing good volume with, up 66%. Just remember, it's going to barcode and do this. So unless you can spread trade, get paid for a rebate by adding liquidity, this is not going to be for you. A lot of times you will see me more active on these. This just wasn't one of those days.
Yeah, I've got nothing to add. Neil's the guy. He knows more about that style of trading than I do, so I definitely don't have anything to add for that.
I just saw crude oil, guys, finishing the day up 5%. So a big move back for crude oil. We haven't seen extreme moves anyways from CVX or XOM or any of the oil-related names today. But one of those days where we get, the NASDAQ and semiconductors specifically kind of offsetting some strength from banks and oil stocks, but oil 5% very quietly.
And the crazy part, it's like, okay, so they close her up there, and then bang, you get another. This happened the other day too. I forget which day last week. The same thing happened. You close her up, and then a move to the upside. Look, the travel names are gonna make a bounce today off of somewhat positive, I guess, positive news with the variant that it might not be that serious. Well, I mean, that's going to be a demand play as well. So we're going to get that oil bump. I didn't see anything crazy when I was looking at like CVX here today. It's a good, strong name. I like it. I think it's a good part for the portfolio, but it's not really doing a heck of a lot here, actually bouncing off of those highs. So I didn't see anything I loved for an equity play over in the oil space, in the energy space. So I'm going to stay away from that. Just again to update. Oh, I got to hit some of these, man. We can hit this key. Like this stock, this ISIG has been a pretty good one. I am cautionary on it, but it's given you this scalp trade a couple of times. I got 14.15s and then up there at 14.25s. And it's given you that down to these 50s a couple of times here. But you got to keep in mind, the only reason that works is because it's a tight stop to 50. If you're trading this off of the 15 high of day, then look, realistically, you're not making enough going 14.25 to 13.50 to 13.60. That doesn't work. 50-60 cents is just less than 1-to-1 to that 15 level. So I have a tight stop on this. That's why to me it works, and I can still hold on to some of my position for 12.50s, or maybe it makes a real flush and the volume is just so big that I'm holding it into like 11.50 or so. But again, it's not doing as much volume as when it spiked earlier, but there's enough volume up here that the trend is still higher, and it could take out that high of day. And I don't even want to wait for that. If it goes through 15 this time, just remember, this is that wick high. it was a failed break at 15. It got to like 15.15 or so, something like that. That gets taken out, a new fresh high. You could see halts again on ISIG. So trade it with caution if you're shorting it. Take profit. No one ever went broke taking a profit. I know I could be sitting there and throwing away, $2, $3 if it continues to flush, but I'd rather bank and get paid making that trade than sit here always hoping for that home run.
Well, going back to crude futures, I was just double checking something. Yeah, it's $10 a good point, or a penny. Going back to crude contracts, this is the crude contract here. It's obviously closed, so then it's a little bit thinner than it normally would be. I believe crude closed at 2 o'clock officially. Obviously, Globex hours allow you to trade a little bit past that, but this is the crude contract. So every penny that the contract moves, it's $10. So what do you do when you have a contract that's doing this? As I watch the futures fall off here, what do you do when the contract is kind of grinding through? It was a gap up and then sideways through 69 and change, and then a little last minute rally here going up to 70. So maybe it was 2:30 that crude contracts closed at. What is the closing time of crude? Let me double check something. I think it is 2:30. 4 p.m. Central Time 4 p.m. So it's 3 p.m. Eastern. Okay, got it. So it's somewhat. It is open for another half an hour apparently. So crude contracts, they kind of do this. What you have is sideways movement until right near the end where it just explodes in one direction or the other. And this is the kind of setup you're getting. It really isn't much of a setup to work with because look at where you are. You get that you get that bump up to start. It was a gap up from 66. That already gives you a decent percent gain on the day. And then you kind of rally another $2 towards the end. And then there you are, 5.31% as of right now, sitting just underneath 70. But 70 is also the top end of this range going back to the end of the month from November. So you have that activity all the way up to 70. It's got to make a move. If it gets above 70 and stays above 70, there might be a trade. If it fails off 70, maybe back underneath 79 or 69, you might have a fall off as well. For anyone who's trading the crude contracts, this is the February contract, I believe, the F22 contract on NYMEX. So there you go, guys. Crude contracts, the way they move in today's session, it didn't look like it was much. It was mostly just a gap up and then just a little rally towards the end there. But apart from that, trading-wise, somewhat quiet. It's not like, say, right here, which is the 28th, where it fell off from 74 to 67 throughout the day, or even days after that, where there was actually intraday trading. Today it was just mostly quiet after a gap up to start the day.
Oh, Pradley, what did you do? In the background, well, you guys don't hear this, but in the background, I can hear Prad and Greg going back and forth. All I heard was something, NVIDIA, so I went to check it, and it didn't move. So I got to find out from Prad what just happened. But you guys got a treat. Brendan, you've got one of our favorite guests.
Justin is here quickly becoming, I think, our favorite guest. Justin, the Day Trade the World marketing guy, in the building for our afternoon wrap-up here of some of the headlines that have come through today, some that might be going forward this week. Justin, great to see you as always. We talked about Lucid a little bit. We'll get into that in a second, but tell me about this Raven software story today, because this is tied back to Activision.
Right. So last week it was revealed that Activision is laying off a number of quality assurance workers from their from Raven, who does a lot of the QA work, particularly for Call of Duty and for Warzone, that particular title. So today, in response to that, there was a walkout, the third walkout in 5 months. So this is kind of on the tail of their CEO, Bobby Kotick, and some of the allegations that have been made around his behavior and his handling of sexual harassment and sexual assault accusations within the company. This is a little bit different. This is part of that whole thing, but this is also just another kind of chapter in that story. And essentially what has happened is that a number of these quality assurance workers were laid off, and the argument or the demand that this group, the ABK Workers Alliance, is asking that everybody on the QA team, including those who were terminated on Friday, that they receive a full-time job. So there's a little bit of the argument there is there's a bit of insecurity around employment. A lot of these people are contract workers. So The result of this is that 30% of the QA team has been let go, which is a pretty significant number when you consider that this team was already pretty small. This whole news comes on the launch of, or comes on the back of, the launch of the new Warzone app in Call of Duty. So certainly a lot of work has been done over the last little while, and now they're saying, why were these people let go? Considering that Call of Duty Warzone makes about $5 million a day. So not
is that all?
Yeah, just only $5 million a day. That's pennies on the dollar. So certainly there's that side of it, which doesn't always look all that great on Activision's perspective. Why not just keep the people on if they're making that much money? So there's a lot that's going on to the story. I sent some questions over to this Workers Alliance, and I got a response back, and I'm going to share that on Twitter. But essentially, they're saying that there's a lack of communication, a lack of honesty, and certainly some pretty eyebrow-raising behavior on the backs or on behalf of Activision and Raven, it seems.
Yeah, so. And if we take it down to a trade level, I mean, Activision up a full % here on the day, trying to get back to significant levels from this morning on the intraday time frame, which is 58. But I mean, if we look at where this thing has come from, I mean, what is this, June? We're talking the high 90s over here, 95, 96. We're trading at 58 right now for Activision Blizzard. So headlines are definitely pushing the stock in the right direction, I would say. We've discussed Lucid quite a bit this morning. Give us your take here on what exactly this means. It almost seems like every time there's a SPAC that de-SPACs, especially in the EV space, the SEC comes running.
Yeah, I think really what you could chalk this up to is a couple things. One, the popularity of SPAC in the last 2 years. We see a lot more of these companies coming to market using a SPAC just to help them get to market a little bit quicker. And I think the other side of it is just the sudden growth in EV, right? You have all these new entrants into the marketplace. You have Rivian, Canoo, Nikola, Lordstown. All of a sudden, this industry is just starting to explode, and you have all these companies coming to market and going public using this SPAC instrument. The SEC this is probably an oversimplification, but they're doing their job. They're looking at this and making sure, okay, is there any malfeasance? Is there any shady behavior going on here? They're going to look at a new instrument or an instrument with rising popularity like a SPAC with a fine-tooth comb and say, let's just make sure that everything is fine before we kind of sign off on everything. So something to be worried about? I don't know.
Yeah.
Lucid is saying, oh, we're gonna cooperate fully with the investigation, and this is likely just both sides just kind of doing their due diligence and making sure that everything is okay. So.
And if you look at what has transpired today, I mean, when Justin sat down today, I said, man, Lucid was a great buy right off the open this morning, as a lot of things were down here around 38.5. We're at 45 right now for Lucid. And just to clarify, it's a request of documents. Like, they just want to see some stuff. They're not really saying anything, wrong was done.
No, I mean, certainly nobody's being arrested. Nobody is being indicted. Not the same thing that could be said for Nikola Motors, but
that's a whole other segment.
That's a whole other story that that we're not even going to talk about today. But this is in the grand scheme of things, this is probably really standard behavior, and there's a 90% chance that this is going to turn into a nothing burger story that will go away probably in the next few months. So,
on that note, let's talk about Uber here, because there was a headline on Uber today. As we sit here right now, 6.4% to the upside today for Uber. So huge bounce from where we were in the pre-market on this UK headline.
Yeah, interesting to see that they're actually that the stock is up that much, given that the UK's High Court has recently, today, ruled that it is unlawful for PHV or private hire vehicle operators to act as an agent between a driver and a passenger, which has always been Uber's kind of argument when it comes to, is Uber the agent, or are they just merely the middleman in all this? The court is saying, nope, you guys absolutely are the agent between this, and the contract does exist between Uber and the passenger. So I think this is going to signal a pretty interesting shift for all the ride-hailing companies or providers, not just in the UK but elsewhere. So definitely an impact in the UK. This could mean that they're going to have to pay the VAT This could also mean that there's going to, this could result in a lower demand. If Uber's prices are going up, people are going to be less likely to use the service. And that's going to wreak a little bit of havoc, I think, in the supply and demand side. And this could have some impact as well around the world. So where else is, is Uber kind of in this tenuous position of, are they the middleman? Are they not the middleman? Are they the provider? A lot of different arguments, really nuanced, but very interesting. So.
Yeah, it remains to be seen, I guess, and it's worth saying. I mean, obviously, not the first court decision that Uber has lost.
Right.
Others have followed when they do typically get a court decision go against them. So,
Right.
as you said, that's just the UK. Let's see what happens throughout the rest of the world. At Trader TV Justin, if you want to join the conversation, guys, on Twitter, lots of great stuff, lots of great content on a daily basis coming from that guy on that side. Justin Kozach, pleasure as always. Thank you.
Thanks, Brendan.
Great stuff. Yeah, Uber, guys, a huge move today. 6% or 6+% back higher after opening lower.
Yeah, I mean, I love Uber is sort of like that reopen play long term. Obviously, they need to get. When eventually you get automated drivers, that's just going to be a big deal for them. And I think a lot of people are waiting around for that. I think there have been some good buying opportunities there. I just got stopped. I remember I said tight stop on ISIG. Yeah, we took the tight stop here. It did wick high through that 15 even, and then of course fails to get through the high of the day. So a bit of a fail breakout. It'll still be okay in the fact that it was a positive trade because we were taking profits in that 60 to 70 cent range a couple of times there. But then, it got stopped out. I still think, you got to tread lightly here. It's a very strong upward trend. It has yet to break that high. The high is 1530. At this point, it is gearing up. That was a pretty good volume spike. It would be gearing up that if it holds 14 even here, I might look at a 1530 break and simply take a breakout long. That's feeling like it's going to be a pretty solid opportunity, maybe in the next couple of minutes or so. So count me in on that one. Docusign, I said I didn't want to chase it. This is sort of why. It just popped back up here as a market, found a bit of a bid. So I want to see if we can hold VWAP here. That 142 looks a little bit more interesting to me. If it can fail to get above that price, maybe going short in here with a tight stop can work. So if it reclaims like 140, 150 here without getting through 42, then I'd like the Docusign trade a little bit more. But ISIG, it might have just wicked me out there. I kind of thought we were going to take out the top and I'd go long. And now it's back to 1430 because of course it is.
One trade I got stopped out of was Roblox. Remember, I was tightening up the stop on this. I've had this trade for a while now, since 10:30 this morning, and we finally just put the stop below 112.50, just in the event that it actually is not going to make it through this 113.5. Looks like I got bottomed out there. I got out just below 112.50. Here we are trading back above 113 and change. So. Stop out back in the money, back deep in the money, but I still made like 40-something cents on this, so I'm okay with that. This trade has taken a lot of time, and given that we're going into our final 45, 50 minutes before we hit imbalances, I'm okay getting out of the way and just kind of focusing on the futures. Going back to the futures though, and I feel like I got to say something regarding that question earlier about, would you go short around 46.10? I directly said no because I had longs that I was managing a certain way, but that I kind of feel bad because that if you were looking for a quick scalp on the futures, that's an easy $750 for each contract, pretty much from 46.10 all the way down to 45.95. That's 15 points. That's $750 per contract. So there's trades to be made in between trades that we're making. So just because we're doing something different, or just because I'm saying no to something, you guys got to do your own research and how you're figuring it out. Would I go short? The answer would have been no, just because I'm managing my long a certain way. But could there be a short if you looked at it differently? Possibly. So always just be aware that don't just replicate trades, because that reminds me of other things that people put in the chats, like, you're trying to replicate trades. Don't replicate trades. Try to understand and learn from what the charts are doing, or maybe what we're doing at times. Obviously, I can't really fully explain how I'm doing the futures because it's so deep in the money that I have to let it move around. As I mentioned, I'm letting it move around like 20, 25 points, even though I'm in the money, but 30-something points. That's just how I trade, and that's not going to always translate well for everyone else. Some people like to scalp. So there's always an opportunity to look at it differently. Just be aware that just because we're doing something doesn't necessarily mean that you can't do something else. that's assuming that you're even taking our advice, but just be aware that there's many different ways to look at the market, and always, always, always look at it your own way. Maybe take some color from what we're doing, but just always look at your own way, because only you would ever understand your strategy if you were to do it yourself, right? As I'm talking though, futures breaking 45.90, I'm probably going to cut this trade if it breaks below 45.85. Now, that means I would have given up pretty much from what, 10 to 85. I would have given up 25 points in profit to walk away with about 13 if I were to get out south of 85, and I'm okay with that. This is my last piece. So as we're moving on down, I kind of expected this towards the end of the day. Like I said, in the final little bit, there's going to be some profit take selling coming in. It looks like that's going to be the sell that's coming in now as we break through 90. I'm still going to hold on to this. I'm kind of rigid to a certain degree with my rules, and for me, management of my trade means that I can only really get out at 45, 85 or below that. That's just how I trade though. So just be aware that's kind of, how things operate, at least when I'm looking at my screen and my trades.
So D Queen there, NOBL, you're going to talk about the, that's just that's going to be like a dividend ETF. And I think we've talked about dividend stocks and being part of your place. I don't have it up here, apologies. I'm trading with Docusign and just got into that trade, but I think it's a good look. I personally usually have individual dividend stocks that I like to be in, as opposed to picking up one of those indexes. I do own one in Canada for a portion of, for similar IEX in my long-term account, but those are not bad places when you don't want to have to pick and choose. It's not a bad place to go. I'll talk Docusign. I talked about allowing it to test 142 in VWAP, fail, and then get in. So I got 141.5. I'm on the bid here to try and get $1, and then if it can take out that bottom, I go right into that 137 idea. And this is all in the midst of that pullback in the futures, but it's a relatively tight stop. And then there was a really, really, really good point. I could add really, like I could probably continue to say really, and I'd be understating it here. And I already forget who said it. I really, really apologize. I get bad with the names here. But was saying I would never short a low float, low liquidity name like an ISIG. And I would tend to think that's not a horrible piece of advice. We have direct market access, and we have access to every single gateway available here, Day Trade the World, every single dark pool for liquidity. So when I hit a routing key, I'm going to get really good fills and really fast executions. And if you don't have that ability, you should never trade something like this. There are swing potentials or swings you can make. There are breakouts you can make where, okay, you're taking something like that on like an 850 break up here, and your stop is down to like $7, and you're risking 20% because you think it might put a 50% move up. Fair enough. But when I'm shorting, when I'm shorting this one, I want to adjust my stop here to the long side because it's going to break. It just broke. Give me a break. Did I not get it?
ISIG?
Yeah, ISIG. Yeah, you know what? That was a bit of a fail break there. That's why I wanted to adjust my stop. But when I'm shorting this, it's always at a level that I have a very, very defined risk. You're going to see me not chase it up here at post halt. I'm going to wait till it settles down after a halt, then makes a consolidation lower. I'm pretty confident I can get out, and I'm not giving it to the high of the day, because if it blows out the high of the day, then it could halt to the upside on me. You're going to see me not trade it here. I might have wanted this thing at about $12, and I think that would have been a reasonable trade here at about $12.30. I was eating my lunch, and that's the only reason I probably don't actually have that trade on when it came there. But I pick my spots, and I think that's what you have to do. There is nothing wrong with sitting out this kind of a stop. And one of the things I just did there was mentally realize, why am I taking a 1530 break long? 50s right there. I hate taking breakouts at 30s or levels like that when I can be looking at a 1550 break, because it goes right through 1530 just now, and then it stops at 1550. So I'm going to adjust things here for me. If it breaks 1550, then I'll go to the long side. But that's one of those like lessons that I've learned from time and time again, that not necessarily getting into that type of a breakout where you're sitting right in front of a psychological level like a 1550, because 15-20 cents is not good enough. Like, you can't take a 30 break, make 15 cents on it, and think you did something good on SIG, because when it pulls back, it's pulling back 10 times that, 20 times that. So you want to make sure there's $1 in it for you, Brendo.
A blast from the past when we had some very low float, highly shorted stocks going crazy back in the summertime, or I guess into the fall a little bit here. Dat Chat, everyone remembers DATS, just popped up going back to about 230, starting to go here again, or trying to go anyways. 340 holding right now at 4.5% for DATS, guys.
Oh, that is one that Prad's been talking about. So everyone that's asking, a lot of people in the chat are like, is Prad actually eating the super chicken? I saw, like, I turn around, I saw him eating. I can't tell what he's eating.
No, he's not.
And I asked him in the chat,
he committed to the shrimp chicken risotto that he was hating on.
and then now he's talking about how it looks like puke. Then don't eat it, bro.
Go across the street
why?
and get
Like,
some
don't
super
eat it.
chicken.
You don't have to eat it. You said you were going to Super Chicken. It's free. First of all, I'll tell you this right now. I've been trading this company for a long time. The lunches, we get catered lunch here that's free for traders, which I eat basically every single day. And I've been doing this since like 2003. When you're a trainee, you don't get the lunch, like you're eating leftovers. But when I started here, it's like the number of traders that are just like, oh, I don't like the lunch, I'm gonna go get something else. I'm like, seriously, it is a free lunch and it is good. Like, you're talking about like chicken and shrimp, like risotto, and you're complaining about that for free, Prad? Bro, save that money, put it in the market, and you'll be doing yourself a service. That's all I gotta say. That's all I'm saying. Don't trash talk the lunches anymore. I know you know what's up, man. Like, you can't eat super chicken every single day. Anyways, back to the market. Docusign just got some out. Well, I don't know. I'll do a backflip or something because there you go. Backflip again because I didn't want to chase this trade. Could have easily taken that short at 141, and would it be in the money? Would it be working? Fair enough, yes. If you took a 140 break, it hasn't happened yet, but I decided to wait for it to retest VWAP. Hopefully we get a bigger rollover, and if 140 goes, we can hunt for that 137 level. But I don't know, man. Like, certain things grind my gears. I mean, it was a pretty solid lunch today, and Prad's just hating on it, man. It was good.
The person in the chat's like, I know Arun takes the free food. You damn right I take the free food. I'm eating everything.
Damn right.
I will eat anything as long. Okay, there's a caveat in there though. Unless they douse the entire thing with cheese, which there's been times where they put cheese on everything. It's usually pasta. And at that point, I'm just like, oh, I know how I'm gonna feel. I mean, we're sitting here for like how long? I cannot eat pasta and be loaded on cheese and sit here for another few hours. Not happening. So in that event, I would get something else. But apart from that, you want to do burgers? I'm down with that. You want to do wings? I had wings, and then I had wings again 2 hours later, just before we came on the show on Friday. So I was all over the place with the wings. So yes, free food, I'm here. Prad's taste buds are a little sophisticated, too sophisticated for risotto and shrimp and chicken risotto. So he's got to get.
Put Rob on. Rob just went and grabbed.
Rob got some more food, so everyone's just getting more and more food. There you go, Rob. Rob's getting some more risotto. Except Prad is he's like a little baby who's being force-fed the food right now, but complaining though. Yes, keep you on camera. Nobody wants to see you eat that chicken anyways.
Like, you know how good you have it that you work at a job where they give you lunch for free, man. Like, I'm just saying, man. Like, people in the chat like Neil's going dad, but I love Prad. I love him to death. I'm just saying, it's good. It's like, there's days where I'll be like, yeah, your lunch wasn't that great today. I still ate it, but it is what it is. Look, the market's still moving. There's still some things happening here. I wanted to come back to one name from earlier that I didn't trade. Well, okay, technically I did trade it, but I want to say I didn't trade it because this is what happened to Tesla this morning off of 1,000, and I'm not proud of myself that I don't have that short, nor the 980 short, which was clean down to 950, but I did trade it. There was a headline that Brendan brought to our attention right when I was having my stop 980 sort of triggered in here at the bottom, and then I got out of it pretty quick. Thankfully, I didn't do the dirty to myself and then completely bungle the trade. But Tesla, now top end of the range here, holding 1,000 to the upside. Literally, maybe not literally, but definitely one of the last names that I found in the market to actually catch that, the high valuation names that caught a bid would have been Tesla. Even now, it's still only down just under 1% here, and it was one of the last ones to come in. And it's still, you're gonna want Tesla to hold this 1,000. I just kind of feel like, when it's weak, it's such a high valuation that everyone loves that I find it's under a lot of trouble. You had that 1,000 bottom from Friday, so you'd love to see it close above that price, and then we can set up for like a 35 or 33 to 35-ish breakout for tomorrow. But I want to see us close above that 1,000 mark. Otherwise, you could see a deeper pullback. Obviously, I like it in DocuSign for that to come back in. Those earnings were pretty crazy. People asking about Zoom, people asking about Facebook this morning. Facebook was a tricky one because there was someone asked in the chat, like, what do I think about a Facebook long from here without specifying? And so I was kind of like, well, I mean, the long looked pretty solid from the day trade, but I wasn't sure that's what they were getting at. So I kind of probably answered it with the long term. And I was like, I would be holding off. I still think there's some weakness to be had for a long term position. If you're already in Facebook, I think you might be able to still get a good price on some of these names in the last little while. But the day trade looks fantastic because, I mean, obviously at the time you had breakouts here, and then you had that previous high on Friday, which has got the double top at 315 that held a bit of a dip down to 313. It's continuing to go. So there's a lot to like about that trade. So I apologize to whoever asked when I answered it for the long term, and you might have actually meant the day trade, which usually that's not a mistake that I would make. Obviously, there's one last before I go back to you, Arun. It's ISIG. It looks like, it did make this quick little break right when I was like literally adjusting my stop order and then canceling it and thinking I put it back in. And I don't know if this wick is real because I still have a stop trigger buy on this bad boy at 51. I'm not sure it actually even broke this level. Or maybe I put it in after it did that fail break. But either way, ISIG is back below that 1440 level.
How high is that wick?
Yeah, he has a 1571 wick
real.
here.
That's
and it's
real.
real, so okay, well, my stop didn't trigger. I'm going to go ahead and cancel it. It looks like it's another failed break through the high of the day, which sets it up for a short through 14, if anything else. So ISIG, back to the southbound trade for me.
Before we get into Facebook, I just want to say one thing. We can't let Pratt off the hook without saying something from the comments. Eric Taylor coming out with the best. From what I saw, he said, Pratt says, "Ma, where's the meatloaf?" That's what he's used to saying. So that's why he's not about the free food. You hear that, Pratt? That's what the chat's saying.
The meatloaf.
All right, going back to Facebook,
What do you mean you don't get it?
Oh boy. Okay, leave him alone.
Okay, no. You talk about Facebook because
We gotta talk. We can keep going all day with Pratt on this, but it doesn't make any sense. If he doesn't get it, he doesn't get it. We can't keep going with
you then
that.
triggered me, bro.
Okay, Facebook 318. The way it's been moving, though, it's been setting up this trade for a few days now. It's from the 1st of December. You saw the hesitation late in the session around 318, and then you got 314 action for the next couple days. We finally got back above that 314 as soon as we can clear 318 and stay strong. Now we're at 318.75. If we can stay strong and close above this 318 going into the end of the day, that could open up a nice little long for tomorrow. Again, a lot of the times this late in the session, I'm flat now. I'm out of my Roblox position. So this late in the session, what I do is I set up trades, and we kind of go through this anytime I'm on the show this late in the day, is that let's set up some trades for the next day. Facebook, Meta platforms, I believe it's called, right?
Well, they're putting it off to next year. So
Meta-
I think you can just call it Facebook, man. They're not
okay.
changing the symbol for a while.
Well, the name is called Meta Platforms officially in eSignal anyways. Facebook, Meta Platforms, north of 318, strong move. Maybe we can get a nice little long here, even if it goes to 320 and dips back in the morning tomorrow. There could be a nice little trade there, 318 with a 313 stop. So it'd have to be below this 314 area as well, because the majority of the volume is probably between 316 and 314. So as long as we can stay above all of that, I think there's a nice little support base for a long. As I talk about this, though, futures, nice little bounce here. Remember, stop on this is 85. Nice little bounce off the 90s, back towards 4,600 we go. Brendan?
A few other things. CFVI, just popping through VWAP there again on decent volume. Nectar, NKTR, up 10% today. Just made day highs on some volume as well. There was a bunch of index changes announced this morning coming up on the 18th for the S&P rebalance. This Nectar, one of them. NKTR going into the S&P small cap 600. SBNY Solar Edge FactSet going into the S&P 500. So again, Nectar into the small cap 600 today. So just making a day high here, guys.
There you go. Sometimes a lot of times these index actions, like you never really know how it's going to play out. Like sometimes we'll get that obvious, sort of pop into the upside, and it'll happen early in the pre-market, and then there'll be zero follow through. And other times you get like, what happens here, like a pop-up, retrace, and it actually comes back to the high, and it's not left for dead. It's not just a sell the news type of event there. So, if the volume was a little bit bigger, I think that 12 even could come into play. 97 is your current top. I'm back in ISIG, but like I said earlier, and I think it was a good point, you don't have to trade these ones, but I'm going with tight stops. Like, I'm not giving this to the high of the day. The high of the day, 1571. I'm short at 1407. Again, I'll go right to that 1450 area, just like before. Question here, Golan was asking about going long the Meta ETF for a play on the metaverse as a contrarian play. I know when we first talked, when Facebook made the announcement, probably the first thing I said that morning was, hey, you could just already look at the this Meta ETF, which has been out for a while, and look at what's listed in it, and go ahead and note the fact that it was like, what were the top two? It was Nvidia, it was Roblox. You can see what happened to both those stocks. Now, certainly it's made a nice bounce because of what's already in it. My whole thing why I don't really trade or care to own it is, well, if you own shares of Nvidia, if you own shares of Intel, if you're heavy in the semiconductor space, or they're a good part of your portfolio, then you're exposed to this regardless. It's not a horrible way to play that, to be honest with you. I think it is playable. Go look at what's in it. You're gonna like what you see a lot of times for a bit of a play, and it gave you good value to get in there today. So I don't really think there's a bad idea there. William Craig asking about holding on to something like an AAL overnight. I mean, if you're not taking profit on the airlines, like, first of all, I don't know what you're like. Did you get into AAL to make a long-term play? If you took a breakout, like a 17 on AAL, and then you're pressing right into, like just look at the high last week, that 1850 level, right? You press right in there and sort of fail. If you're taking that squeeze, that's a good 10% move or just shy of it, and you're getting that nice return. I mean, I don't know what swing where you wouldn't be taking that out. That's my whole thing, or at least taking something out there. If you want to hold on for rest, for more there, because, whoops, I went the wrong way, because you think there's some room to run, that maybe you come back, test that 19, get to the 50 period. Nothing wrong with that. I don't have an issue with that. I'm just not sure. From a day trade, of course, you take profit. Any swing trade, looking at those levels, if it gets you that 10% mark and it kind of pulls back a little bit, you want to be banking some of that profit. And then it's easier to hold or learn to hold when you've paid yourself a little bit, because then you can stomach it if it comes back on you. But if you take nothing out, then suddenly it doesn't look so rosy. And as I say that, I just failed to take anything out there on ISIG. When it pops down and gives you that 1350 like it was before, well, I didn't get anything out. And paying yourself that 50 cents makes it easier to stomach this, because it's going, I'm giving myself 50 cents on a stop. I should be taking 50 cents here when it gives it to me, take 75, 80, and then try to hold for the home run there. There's a reason why active traders do that. It exposes you to more positive possibilities, right? If you try to get in at the bottom and out at the top, there's one way that it's going to work out for you. But there's a lot of ways that this stock could go from $14 ISIG down to $12. I mean, it could break the high of the day and then go there. It could break 15, not the high of the day, and then go down to 12. It could fail to break 1450. All those different ways that it can go down, or it could hold 1350, come back up, retest the high. If it's going to barcode and then go, I want to make something if it goes that way. If it breaks the first level but not the second, retest the lower high, I want to make some that way as well. If you just hold everything down to VWAP here, well, there's only one way it's going to work for you, Miss V.
Hey Neil, we've got a super chat from William Craig. Do you guys think there is a trade on AAL into the close or holding it overnight? AAL is up more than 8%, guys.
I think Neil just did that one. Yeah.
But I didn't address the second part of that, which is if I thought there was a trade on it. So like I said, if I was in it, I would take profit. In terms of thinking there's a trade, I know it's hard for me not to think that there's a decent chance that there could be profit taking on some of the travel space here. And we're about 25 minutes away, or just more than that, from the imbalances coming out, right? So you've got to watch anytime there are outsized moves, especially in a big sector like this. You might have to be worried that you could have imbalances move this. And there's just no way I would want to be exposed to 350 at breaking. But there is that chance that if you get a buy imbalance on this, in terms of a trade, let's say you get a small buy imbalance on this that retests that high. That was a $17 break that stalled out just shy of a 10% move to the upside. You get a small buy imbalance, this could pop up, fail at 1850, and then you have yourself a gorgeous little retracement trade. But I wouldn't want to do that in the face of a gigantic buy imbalance. If it comes out a sell, this thing could really crater as they take profit through an 18 even. So apologies for not answering the second part. I'm glad you brought that up, Ms. V. I only talked about if I had to swing from 17, I would definitely have banked something. I mean, holding out for the 50 period on a swing trade is not a bad idea because you're in the money here. Maybe it's a 1 or 2 day rally. Maybe it's a weekly rally. Who knows? It was a big bottom and a lot of selling that just went off in the last week or so. So it does make sense to try to want to extend it a fair bit, but I would be taking some profit. I would be looking for that pop and fade if there was a small buy and balance that came out. While that was happening, I'll hit this key. because you know what? Rob was like kind of fixing up our board, and like I haven't been able to find that one in a while. So Miss V was just on screen, so we can do that little Superman action for you. And ISIG, which has been the one I'm focused on because it's doing tremendous volume. It does pay me again at 1350, so I'm right back to the well. Still have a tight stop. Still looking for the chance that it moves down to 1250. But if you're not going to trade this, knowing I'm going to get out when it makes that break. I'm going to wait for it to fail that top, and then I'm going to get back in at the same consolidation. If you're not going to have that tight stop, re-entry, or the flexibility, then you're just holding a short against the grain, hoping for VWAP. And that's what I was getting at. That's like one way to do it. Fine, I know it works for some people, but I would much, much rather, take the paper cut hits rather than just try to be like, I'm right on this one trade. I'm just going to hold it until it works for me. I don't think that's a good approach. I think you pay yourself along the way. You have to have an out before you can get back in. And then, that allows you to be a bit more disciplined. It's easier to follow rules when you can articulate them and when you know what it means to be wrong in the trade.
Going back to trading, it's easier to follow rules also if you write them down, because that way you can also understand what you're talking about or what you're thinking. And you're more likely to follow your rules or conditions for your trades if you actually write them down. So physically, write them down on a piece of paper, in a little book, whatever it takes, and then if you need to remind yourself what your rules are for the trade, and when you'll get to a point where you look at that piece of paper or that book, and you're like, you know what, I broke that rule today and this is what happened or whatnot. So just be aware that writing your rules down, your strategies, whatever, that helps. That makes a big difference, because I did write mine down, so I know mine in and out. So if I were to make a mistake somewhere, I instantly know that, you know what, that's where I messed up, because I would know exactly what I should be doing versus what I did, right? Going back to the AL position though, or that trade, is there a trade to be made there? Look at where we are. Right near that 1840 mark, 1820 seems to be hesitating quite a bit around that 1840. So 1850 would have to be the breaker. The fact that we got just above there today and failed back to 18 even, there's a lot happening around this 18. So I would argue that there's going to be shorts on the table until 1850 goes. Given the way it's moving, there's a ton of resistance here. We've got to clear 1850 to get this market moving. Otherwise, I think shorts are the only way to go. As long as you're above 18. Obviously, if you're below 18, then you got to worry about support bases around 17. But as long as you're above 18, I think shorts would be the better play until you clear 1850, at which point the long could be on the table. As I talked, though, futures coming off here after hitting 4,600. Now going back to 45.90, this could mean that I would have to get out of my long here, the last leg of my long, if we actually get below 45.85. We're going to our final, 35 minutes, about 25 minutes before imbalances come out. And as I talked, though, I remember when we were talking, I was like, oh, you know what? Facebook, yeah, if it stays above 318, even if it goes to 320, and then as long as it stays above 318 after it gets to that point, that'd be great. Yeah, it turns out that took about 5 minutes. We were at 318.70 when I was talking. We went right to 320, and now we're back to 319. So the speed of movement is absolutely nuts on Facebook. And as it kind of makes sense, right? With the futures moving the way they are, Facebook moving aggressively. We're just going to take a quick look at some other index names. Now Apple's coming off about 50 cents, 50, 60 cents. Let's take a look at Microsoft. What's Microsoft doing? Absolutely nothing. So Microsoft is actually holding out well. So it seems like the movement is going to be isolated to a few names at the top of the index. But apart from that, though, man, futures are coming off a little bit. I guess profit taking, it's not completely done yet, because here we are, 10 points from that 4,600. Valeria?
Hey, everyone, we've got a super chat from Mark the Realtor 305. Peloton might breakout has news. Can we guys take a look at Peloton?
Peloton.
It's right. I mean, Peloton just pushed. I see the volume spike there, right almost through the high of the day there at 43.50 or so. Now, a lot of stocks had that, I guess, beaten up names, high valuation, whatever you want to call them, whatever name you're giving them today, had that V bottom. So you want to put, anytime you have monster movement like this, volatility at the open, you want to file away those prices, because when price discovery comes in and it settles down and makes it high, a lot of times that's going to get respected. So you look at those crazy wicks up there and you say 43.50. Again, not a lot of symbols also have this lower high from Friday when things flushed. And the stocks that are not not breaking through and breaking out from these levels, like if you were to pull up a chart of C3ai, right, you're going to see exactly the same thing. Monster drop on Friday, consolidation in the afternoon, and then a lower high being put in. C3ai then put in that same double top and then broke out at 30. That's a stronger stock, relatively speaking. Peloton, even on the news that just came, is going to fail to get through that previous high, both at the open and then both here. So it's still, to me, under the penalty box a little bit. You're going to want to see it break through that level to be sure. And again, this is just going about that Lululemon lawsuit from last week. But you have this double bottom here at 41. The failure to break out today. And again, like I just, by the way, like I randomly pulled out C3ai because I remember, I was just looking at it at lunch and I remember that setup very, very similar to this, but an example of it breaking through and then showing another sign of strength because it had a second leg to it. So whereas Peloton, even on the volume here, cannot get through that 43.50 level that it failed to break on Friday, then failed to break at 9:30 in the morning here today. So if you don't get through this and the market sells off again, it's like I would sooner short Peloton through 41 at that low of the day than I would C3ai if it came back to its 27.50 double bottom. And while I'm saying it, I might as well show it here just to give you guys an idea of the comparison I was making here. This is C3ai where you get a flush, you get the higher low, you get that double top, you get the breakout. Now it's trading above that range. So if we got a pullback in the market and the NASDAQ came back in and these high valuation, no profit, trade-off revenue, future value, expensive valuation names started coming back down. Well, I mean, C3ai through 27.50, I might not like as much as I like Peloton, which failed to show enough strength to get through a level like this. So that's, and again, this is sort of nitpicking between like one to the other, but there's just a little bit of relative strength and weakness with a very similar setup there. And it's not to say that I don't think C3ai would be a good short through 27.50. It's just that Peloton today showed me a little bit more weakness, especially since, hey, it had positive catalyst. There was no news on C3ai. It just bounced with the rest of the market here. So, that's one of the things you got to look for. It was strong, but there were names that didn't have a catalyst, which were in a similar boat of getting woodshedded on the daily chart, and then catching a bid and then breaking out through key areas of resistance. Peloton just hasn't done that yet. So I need to see it clear that level, that 43.50 to the top. For me to think it's out of the doldrums here, that just hasn't happened yet. And that's one of those, sometimes you just wait for a stock to actually break out. You don't always have to catch a bottom. Be with the momentum instead of trying to find it.
I agree 100% with Peloton at that level. I'm going to say 44 though, just slightly higher on Peloton's levels. Just so there's a ton of action up here. If anything, the best opportunity is probably going to be a fade. This is very similar to the other trade we were looking at, the AL. It's hitting a ton of resistance, right? So what's the path of least resistance? It should be to the downside, given the amount of action you're getting near the top, above 43, going up to 44. When Peloton, or if Peloton were to break 44 in the next couple of days, that's where the trade is. Or downside break through 41. That's got to be the trade. Anything in between, you just got to leave it be. You're probably more likely to lose money trying to trade in between the levels than you are to kind of make money. So I would just rather kind of look for shorts maybe north of 43, going into 44 if you get the setup, or a break of 41, but that's probably the best bet to protect yourself from taking hits though. Rivian, okay, 100 long. Looking real nice now because of that 115. This is ridiculous. How do you even trade this late in the day? I think the only trade would have been the 114 long, but that's assuming that you can get the 110 stop. Can you get 118? Maybe if you're lucky, you're probably going to run out of time before the day closes out, before you get that price point. So I would just keep an eye on Rivian for another day because we do have some levels we can work with. That 118 is there. That 120 is there, 122, pretty much all the way up to 124. You can probably work as some resistance zones. So there's going to be some sort of a setup, whether it's to the buy side or sell side. It doesn't really matter. It just needs to be a setup. There are some levels to work with, so that's one option. And in the chat, I noticed that there was a talk about Coop software. It was Coupa software.
They report.
Yeah, that's why it came up.
Right.
So around this 170, that's where the majority of volume is sitting, between 172 and I want to say 168. 170 is right in the middle. So it's a 4-point range where I would argue that the majority of volume is sitting. So if the report were to be strong, you're probably going to get a nice little support base right here, and then it's going to go to the upside. If we were to go to the downside, and this is where the setup actually happens, if it were to go to the downside and blows through this 168, then we actually get through 164, then you have a nice little fade here, because then you can go for the short below the low, and you know that there's going to be a ton of resistance between 168 through 172. So it all depends. Obviously, we don't know the report, but when the report comes out, you just got to figure out where my level is going to be. Clearly, 168 is going to be the bottom end of the support base. And then top end, you have about 186, it looks like, all the way up. So 184 going up to 186 could provide resistance. So as long as we clear those levels, there's going to be a trade. If we don't clear those levels, then it's just a matter of waiting to see how this market responds to the report after these levels are cleared, right? So more often than not, given that we're setting up around levels like that, one of these levels are bound to get blown up. So it's either going to be the 168 to the downside or that 186 to the upside.
So I see trader formerly known as Jude Fernando mentioning Rivian. Rivian up 10%, another strong move. And look, if you watch the morning show, missed out that double bottom, $100. Wow, that was a good long. I like that 112.50 area. And on the same vein, like that failed breakout that happened on Friday at that 112. The next level up was this 117, where again it had a failed break capitulation. So 115 is right in the middle of that 12 and that 17. That's why it feels like a trap to me. That's why I said it in the chat. I'm like, well, I might as well just say it to everybody here. I just feel like that's a bit of a trap. And this late in the day, in 15 minutes to imbalances, as a day trader, remember, we have to be flat at the end of the day. Now, if you were, and I don't swing equity positions overnight short, in my personal account. We don't trade overnight in the day trade world. It's a day trading company. But I just think the risk here, of course, if it's a day two move, could you gap through that 117 if you're holding a 115 overnight? So that trade set up if you had a longer time frame. Like if you're putting it in the morning, and you're going 15 because you just wanted to get in front of this, sort of 17 to 18 area, and you're thinking it can come back down and give you like, 2-to-1, give you like a $6 winner. That's one thing early in the session. This late in the day, I wouldn't chase that trade because to me, it's $2 away from the top, and it's only 25 minutes for me to trade till the close. So that'd be a big time no-fly zone for me at 115, and it doesn't mean that an even level like that isn't going to give you a good short, because on the 1 minute chart, yeah, okay, you shorted here. It's broken a couple of times, gotten to that 30, so you could stick it in here at 75s, risk about 50 pennies to the high of the day. That's not terrible. But when I look at it at the higher time frame, I don't like it. And it doesn't, like on the 1 minute chart here, it looks absolutely fine. It's not dissimilar from shorting it at 112 earlier, which I obviously did, or shorting it here at like this 113 half fail break idea. So I get it. It's probably going to work out for you here. But the only reason I'm not taking it is because, A, time of the day, B, when I go to the higher time frame, I just don't love the level on the higher time frame. And for us, candidly, when you're not holding it overnight or you're not trading it in the post market, you get picky. You get really picky with your entries when there's a limited amount of time for the trade to work out for you. Speaking of which, I'm literally going to get on the bid and get out flat of this BFRI, which is doing absolutely, it's just not even moving. And why am I sitting in something that's not moving? That makes no sense. I say all the time we shouldn't do it. So you see BFRI, and I've been sitting in it the entire afternoon. It's not going anywhere. It's not even worth bringing up the bloody chart, to be honest with you.
What is moving? Futures. Now we're back underneath 45.90.
Oh, nice.
No, it's not nice because I'm long. It's not helping my case right now. I've got the last leg here to the long. So you see the exits here. 82, yeah, that was decent. Then I got some 4600s, and then I got some just in front of 4610. And then the last leg here, I've got the stop on this is going to be south of 45.85. I've got about 20, just north of 20 minutes left. We'll see how this market closes out. This is obviously some profit taking being done, some decent profit taking being done. So the market's off about 20 points from its highs. What can we do with that? You really can't do a whole lot except, manage what you've got. And then if you don't have anything, don't get too involved, right? So we'll set up some imbalances for you as well. Right here. Okay, so just to be fair, these are not live yet. Remember, the imbalances come out at 3:50 Eastern time. We're about 12 minutes away from getting that. You'll see on the right-hand side, it says market time, 9:30. That was the last update. That was the morning imbalances. So at 3:50, all these values will get updated. We'll see what side has what stock and what side would have the largest values in terms of imbalances. It does look like maybe the market's coming off. Maybe it's a sell side. I don't know. It could be a sell side imbalance. But given the markets are strong, a lot of tech names are strong. ES up 1.17%, NASDAQ up 0.82%. So tech strength did come through. Because earlier we started the day with NASDAQ being down, ES being up, and then we turned positive, went back negative, and then we ended up going back positive on the NASDAQ. And here we are at 0.8% on the NASDAQ. We are seeing Facebook strength. We are seeing, Apple very strong as well. Apple's up 2.2% today. Microsoft up just under 1%. So there is some strength there across the board at the top of the wait list, right, in terms of NASDAQ components. So there's some strength there. We'll see what these imbalances look like in about 10 minutes or so. What else do we have? We have Peloton coming off, remember, off that 43. Set it up for another day, 44 break or nothing. Futures bouncing off these 90s. Okay, I appreciate that because I am long, so I would prefer a move back towards the highs, ideally. I remember futures, to be fair, futures also closes at 4:15 Eastern time. So 15 minutes after the stock market closes, the futures are still open. So for 15 more minutes, you have access to the futures apart from the market itself as the stock market. Rivian, strength into the close, it looks like. So this is something we got to keep an eye on. Our Rivian imbalance is going to be strong or to the buy side coming into the end of the day. Given the type of move you had from pretty much from 100 all the way up to 115, are the imbalances going to be on the buy side? That's important to see. And what do we got here? Coop, we mentioned that was going to be earnings afterwards. Caterpillar, that's just something I had from earlier. Not a whole lot, but we'll just keep an eye on these imbalances as we get near the end of the day.
So there was a question in there, someone asked about, like, well, correct me if I'm wrong, was asking, I think, a swing long on Lucid. Was it swing long or swing short? I gotta, what do you think of a swing on Lucid? If you don't specify long and short, I'm gonna always assume you mean a long. I don't love it. Honestly, you're still talking about an investigation by the SEC. You put in a wipeout bottom that just gave you from bottom to top about, you're talking about $8. Well, it's actually $8 from bottom to top here, which is a 20% plus move. I mean, that's just absolutely gigantic. And you're actually almost retaking the previous low from Friday at 44.50. So I just think your risk to reward isn't fantastic. That's why I would stray away from it. Brendan has some news for us here.
Yeah, not much reaction here on either side, but worth a note. Ford and Salesforce teaming up, CRM, to launch a software service aimed at small businesses. That just a couple minutes ago. As I mentioned, not much reaction though from either, guys.
Somebody slap me if I don't take CRM bouncing off 250 and this 200 period moving average, which I said the first day, and it's like, oh my goodness. So when they reported on that first day, it's like, you got to be kidding me. I did not get the long off at 250 because it was at the end of the day. And then the next day, because I actually did try catching the bid at the open and muted success. And then I like the 250 level, did not get it second day, was able to trade it, a little bit the day after that. And it's given you so many tries at this level. Today was probably the last ditch effort. You're probably not going to get it again after this. But guess what? Arun talked about setting up trades. High of the day right now, 259. You have the Friday afternoon top here, 259. It does set up for a bit of a breakout at that price. Like if we, let's say we get a bit of a pullback here, drop down to 56, and then you get a nice consolidation. We set up for a 259 break, which can get you a couple of quick bucks there tomorrow, and then maybe getting through that 263. But CRM, Salesforce, it just feels like a name that it wasn't as bad as it seemed on the earnings play, but it's all about valuations lately. It still has room to fill in a ton of this gap. And that'd be one of those names that you don't want to stray too far away from. I don't know that it's right or wrong about Rivian here just yet. And look, it's entirely possible that Rivian comes right back, retakes this bottom here, 114, and falls like $2 or $3. Maybe you guys a sell imbalance. I have no idea. I didn't love the trade. It felt a little bit of a trap to me. And when I jokingly said it's not worth pulling up the BFRI chart, this was the break I took on BFRI when it took out 420. I got some out in front of 4. It would not break 4. Look at this, just doing absolutely nothing. But when it's not moving, get out, because then this happens. I actually get out at 17s. It then pops up like 10 cents after doing nothing. So it's not even worth the risk of holding on to it. Thankfully, like right after I get out, it popped 10 cents, because go figure. Brendan, what else you got?
Speaking of Rivian, guys, crazy chart I just saw here we're sharing. Talking about IPOs this year. It's been a monster year for IPOs. Rivian here, the largest of the year. But if I scroll down here, this chart is pretty crazy to me. This is last year versus value of this year. 300 billion worth of IPOs came to market in 2021, easily surpassing last year in the past 10 years, for that matter, on deal value. 300 billion worth of IPOs this year.
That kind of environment, right? In the chat, there was a question. Someone was asking if they heard that the spider options are open until 4:15. I have no clue. I don't really trade this options, but I know the futures market's open until 4:15, so it would make sense because the spiders do have, or the spiders right here. Let me pull that up. That's right, Amex. This does trade with the futures, right? It's in sync with the futures, so this would trade until 4:15 for the most part as well. What you are going to see though is it's Amex. So once NYSE ARCA closes, you're going to get trades off of the other exchanges. So you're going to get the ARCAs and the NSBs and the BATs and all the different exchanges that are still trade until 4:15. So volume is going to be somewhat lighter, but it's still going to be there. So it makes sense as to why it would go until 4:15, given the futures do and the spiders do as well. But I have no concrete knowledge of how the options market work specifically in this sense. So I'm not going to bother going further into it. Just kind of do the research on it. It makes sense to me as to why it would, but preferably I would just kind of stick with the futures. That's my game, right? So I know how the futures work and I know what the times are and all that other stuff. That's one thing you do need to know is how things operate in the symbol that you actually want to trade or in the market that you want to trade. So that's one thing I'm looking at. We'll get imbalance updates in about 5 minutes or so. I heard that somebody was saying that NVIDIA is running. I don't know if I agree with you.
Crazy.
I wouldn't agree. I wouldn't go too crazy with that move. Yes, it ran. It's still at 300. It's been at 300 for a while now, so we'll leave it alone. At this point, anything that has gone sideways is going to be influenced completely by the imbalance. So just be aware that the imbalance comes out in about 5 minutes, just under 5 minutes. So if the imbalances were to be positive on NVIDIA, it's going to make a rather large move to the upside, but it has to be positive and it has to be a large positive. So NVIDIA has done about 60 million shares on the day. It has to be something large, maybe 10% of the day's flow, trading volume for it to actually influence the stock. If it's going to be like 1 or 2 million, NVIDIA is not going to care. There's enough liquidity here to absorb 1 or 2 million of NVIDIA shares. But if it's something large, you're going to see these stocks move, and that's what you pay attention for when you are looking at these imbalances, right? What is abnormally large for the amount of volume that stock has done? And oftentimes it's going to be those small ones. I believe there's some index movement in some of these stocks. I know Brendan was talking about them. There's some index movement today in some stocks. So we'll see if these names actually come out with some imbalances. I don't know. You look it up. We should have access to that stuff. Why would you ask me? I'm saying there's some index movement. I don't know
right now, Pratt. We're live right now. Like Pratt yells out, what index action? Dude can look it up when we're live on the show. Look, man, it's not a big deal, but we do have that resource available. Someone had asked for the link to the IPO article I think that Brendan had up there. I don't know if we have a link to that, but if we can get it up, first of all, I don't know if we can get that to you guys, but if we can, we will do that for you. I was just looking at a firm here because sometimes you get a stink bid, and there was nothing about this that stood out. But I mean, the firm broke 100. Goes all the way down to 96. Nothing on the daily is going to tell you to pick that one up at that price, but this is looking pretty solid. I like that 106 level, obviously, where I got in before, but I'm now looking back to about a 103. I think that could be interesting on the way back downside tomorrow. I'm not completely convinced that this is all over in terms of the market sort of selling. This feels like a bit of a relief rally. I'm not believing it just yet. I mean, things that I didn't get more of that I wanted to. Someone had asked in the chat there. I was looking to add a bit to CRM because Salesforce is something that I wanted to pick up, and I'd still like to be able to buy a bit of a dip in Morgan Stanley. But I'm not there with tech yet. I already have enough of the tech space. I'm already pretty well diversified. When it comes to picking up some of those consumer names like like my version, like my PG and my Pepsi as well. I just picked up some General Electric as well when it dipped. So I think I'm pretty good there. I did stink bid finally into Virgin Galactic, which I can hold for the long term. And then I got some Affirm, which I did pick up just on Friday as well. So it is what it is. I don't think you have to hunt too far. I think there could be some value to be had if we get another push into the downside. but I'm not rushing to the polls to pick up any of these. CRM would have been one off of 250, but that's obviously been a bit of a miss for me, both with the day trade and the long term, because it's giving you a few chances off that level. I did want to see it settle down after earnings and wait for next week. That was here today, and I didn't get the 250 today, so I do have to look for it tomorrow. Maybe I'll do that on my day off, which I shouldn't, because I try not to look at the markets when I'm off. It's just one of those. I usually fail, because the first thing I do when I wake up is look at crypto prices overnight. But anyways,
Are you heavy in crypto?
I wouldn't say heavy. Like it's about, because of appreciation, it's gone over 5% for me, even with the pullback there. But it's just one of those things, like you get in that weird habit. I am very good about not looking at my long term. I find it's a really bad thing to be constantly checking, like, oh my goodness, how do my long-term positions do today? Oh God, you can't do that. It just skews the way that you look. It just skews. Like, you can look at anything that you were trying to swing, or you're looking to get outs, or maybe there's a name you wanted to get into. That's fine to be constantly checking prices and checking charts, but man, like, you can't, like, I'm not sitting there looking at Amazon's chart and being like, oh my gosh, where is it at? Like, I might do that with Virgin Galactic, because like that's a shot type of play. But certainly when I'm not worried about where Intel is going to be tomorrow. I'm worried about where Intel is going to be next year. And you have to. Sometimes you have to have that outlook. To me, that's like a 2 to 5 year transition play on the Foundry. So why would I care what it's doing? It's up today. That's nice. I don't care. And for your long term, sometimes you have to have that bit of an approach. But crypto, it's a bit different. Like, you kind of get wrapped into this whole world of checking it every single day. Imbalances, they just...
Yeah, I got them out. It looks like it was mixed. It's mixed at best. We got Vail to the sell side, 2.6 million shares. Let's quickly look at Vail. 36 million done on the day. It's got a 2.6 million share imbalance. Comcast, CMCSA to the sell side, 2.3 million shares as well. That's done 13 million, so a larger percent. It's also got 1.7 million paired. So clearly there's a lot more interest. It's roughly about 4 million shares total. So what this means is that roughly there was 4 million share imbalance. 1.7 has already found a buyer, and there's still another 2.3 that needs to be matched with somebody or a few people. So if you have a sell side imbalance, there should be some sell side pressure. What do you have on Comcast? Maybe it just lost a bid. It probably fell a few cents here and there. What else do we have? EDU. Okay, that's a name that's come up before.
That's a Chinese education name.
1.3 million shares to the buy side. It's kind of locked in here. It's done 27 million shares. That's not going to matter. LUMN. What does that have? Oh, it's a New York stock. LUMN, 9.6 million shares, 1 million share imbalance, 350,000 paired. So that's a name that could be of interest. Let's see how it moved. Not much. It doesn't look like a lot of these imbalances are large enough to make a difference for the stocks. So we'll leave it alone. One thing I did notice, Rivian. Okay, Rivian decides to take off this imbalance here. It was sitting around 115.37, and then after the imbalance comes out, it's up $1. So let's quickly go in and take a look at what Rivian looks like. Let me set this up for you guys. So
I had a key for that one. Oh, goodness. Oh, man. So a couple of my things are, I can't find it's a trap. So I threw the chat. People asked about Apple, 230,000 to sell. AMD was a small buy, but Rivian. And look, man, this is not about. It ain't about me being right or wrong. I'm wrong plenty of the time. You guys certainly see, but sometimes it just felt like a trap. You're in the middle of a no man's land on a higher time frame, and it doesn't sometimes you will just trade off of a 1 minute chart or a 3 minute chart, or you only trade off your daily. That's the thesis. But I always love to have confirmation of a higher time frame. I love to be able to look at the daily chart of the 15 minute and be like, oh, I do like this price level. I know I'm wrong here. I didn't, for whatever reason, didn't love that 15. And what scared me is when you have a bottom like this with these big moves where you have these 10% recoveries and big breakouts, it's about what then happens at the close, because it's like it doesn't take much of an imbalance to really get some movement here through the top. Yeah, that's right. That's the Admiral Akbar. It's a trap. But anyways, and it's not about being right or wrong. This does set up that 117 for tomorrow there, and we'll see what happens. Trader formerly known as Jude Fernando. No, my middle name is actually Peter, believe it or not. My middle name's Peter. You know what's funny about it? I almost told you where that came from. Like, my full name, like Neil Peter, is derived from my mother's middle name. But if I said it out loud, like a shoe would go flying from Brampton, find its way here and hit me in the head. Like, trust me. Like, if As a matter of fact, even telling you guys that much, I'm actually a little bit scared that I
Brad
said
would
that.
know a lot about that, so it's okay.
Brad probably knows about that
Yeah.
too. Like, it's more a slipper, not a shoe.
Ooh. Well, you're not. Of course, Brad would take it to a different level. We're talking about shoes and slippers, and he brings in belts into the conversation. Okay. Imbalances. Just an update with imbalances. In about a minute or so, we're going to get an update from the floor. So the way imbalances work is 350 you get an imbalance, and at 355 you get the floor update. So the D quotes get put into the imbalance, which means that the floor brokers kind of establish what they want to do as well. So we don't get that information update until 355, and you're in about 30 seconds or so, you're going to get this update, and you're going to see a lot of these imbalances change. Now, if Rivian's imbalance were to stay to the buy side, I checked the imbalance real quick. It's not much. That means it must have been from something else, because the imbalance here, Rivian, 13,000 shares to the sell side. There must have been something else that came out as well that I'm not seeing here just yet. Or the programs are running it strong. So in about 10 seconds, we'll get the update. We'll see how this looks as we get into the 355 update on these imbalances. What do we have for updates here? Here we go. Vail still at, nope, AT&T popped in with a 2.6 million share buy side. Vail is still there, Pfizer's in there, EDU's still in there. Let's take a quick look at AT&T. 50 million shares and 2.5 million shares on the imbalance left. I mean, there's a slight move. You got a 3-cent move, but it's done 50 million shares, so I guess it shouldn't be that much of a surprise that this thing is refusing to move more than that. Because again, it's a ratio, right? If the imbalances are large enough relative to the volume the stock has done, then you're going to get a move, an aggressive move. But if the stock has done a ton of volume, you're going to need a ton of volume to move this the stock. Everything that's north of 1 million shares has done decent volume and can absorb any of the imbalances that are posted right now. It's a Monday. And typically what you're going to see though on days like this is there's not going to be much unless the market did absolutely something nuts. But on the 17th, that's an index event. That on the 17th, you're going to get a ton of action because there's portfolio adjustments. S&P is doing their adjustment. TSX is doing their adjustment. NASDAQ is doing their adjustment. A lot of indexes are doing adjustments. So these imbalances will be abnormally large on the 17th. So in about 2 weeks or so, you should see some activity, heavy activity in these imbalances.
Rule number one, first of all, for everybody that's listening right now, is if you plan on trading momentum stocks going into the close, holding positions going into the last like 10 or 15 minutes, then every time Arun does this, you need to pay attention, go back, re-watch it, and understand what actually moves the market and what moves stocks and why and how, because that's absolute gold. A lot of times I'm sitting out these trades, in very few instances I'll get into it. There's a poll up here, and I'm going to do something I don't normally do, because I usually say like you got to give the vote to Miss V, who's going to ring the bell. It should always be Valeria, but I'm actually going to give my vote to Lucas here today. And it's simple. Look, at the end of the day, if you show my screen here, Miss V is going to win because she's always going to win because it's good luck ringing the bell. We're up again today, and I was like, we need the green today, and she's like, but she's got the purple. Maybe it's going to work. Well, it did work, but Miss V is going to be on the bell. I threw my love to Lucas because someone had asked for Lucas, and I'm like, yeah, it's a losing effort, but sometimes you got to throw that sympathy vote in. So maybe one of these days, Lucas, you're going to win the poll, and you're going to get to ring that bell. I don't know if it's going to be today, unless something crazy happens in the next minute and a half. Unlikely that it will. For those of you wondering where Sean is, Sean had a couple of days off. Sean is back tomorrow. I will not be, but you get to take advantage of Arun. Of course, the rest of the team will be here, including Trader Prad, and maybe he'll actually respect and enjoy the free lunch that's provided to him every single day. There he is.
No, but I have a serious question. It's from the chat before we close up. It was from Steve. Prad, does your mom still do your laundry? Prad, answer? Prad says no, unsure, but he seems a little unsure about that. He might need to check his hamper at home to see if mommy did his laundry today.
Don't bag on Prad. I'll tell you these guys in all seriousness. We're fun. We're a family around here. But Prad, Prad has not been trading a long time, and he comes in he does that midday show for you guys, talking about his trades, live trading. It's not an easy thing to do. I had a lot of trouble when I first started out because I'm not an on-camera kind of person. And I know for Prad to be able to do what he's doing is fantastic. Am I going to bag on him because he won't take advantage of a free lunch when he's at that age where you should be? when you're a young trader, with a minute to go, guys, when you're a young trader, building your bankroll is everything, man. Like, I lived at home longer than the rest of my friends because I knew that I had to be able to survive when I went into a slump. And I didn't want to be, when I moved out, I wanted to be able to move out and know that I wanted to be a trader for a long time and that I was going to be able to survive it. So that meant sacrificing. So, I got pure respect for that, and anyone wants to bag on Pride, he's doing it the right way. I love you, man. But save those shekels, eat the free lunch. Miss V is going to be on the bell. It is what it is. I knew she was going to win. You knew she was going to win. What? Who did you guys? Am I throwing to Pride? What? What was that?
Yeah, guys, there's a lot of scammers going on in Discord. I banned, I think, at least 10 people. If you're getting any messages from anyone asking you about, we can give you Bitcoin, we'll give you stocks, report them to me and then block them also, sending you right back.
Okay, perfect. Yes, we absolutely, under no circumstances, any of our accounts will ever ask you for anything. Never. You know it's fake if that's the case, because that's not what we're about
And
here.
I don't have an account, so I should not be ever asking for anything.
We know that. It is countdown time. It's Miss V on the bell because she crushed the poll as always. Of course, obviously, you know what's going to happen. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 in positive token. And there we go. Now this time I know exactly where things have finished up today, but when we always go to Brendan to try to figure it out. Just noting here at the close, a bit of a pullback in Apple specifically. It tested and broke that 165 level. I was just kind of watching Apple because someone had asked about the imbalance, and it wasn't really moving it. So those not that large imbalances didn't have much of an effect on the market. It's not every day that they will move. But let's see how we finished up, Mr. Brendan.
Yeah, nice gains right across the board here, guys, for all three U.S. markets here. 1.8, 1.16, 0.8 there for the NASDAQ, as you mentioned, a little selling coming in at the end of the day. 1%, 1.5% for Toronto and Brazil. 5.25% to the upside today for crude oil. Still a little bit red there for, we did actually get positive, I noted, at one point for Ethereum, but down slightly at this point.
Yeah, I mean, given what happened over the weekend, Bitcoin holding above 47, 48, that'll be considered a win, right? Like if you woke up on Saturday, a lot of people were like freaking out, right? But so we'll take the win we can get it. Arun doing a fantastic job filling in. Brendan never takes any time off, thank goodness, because we'd be screwed without him. Sean will be back tomorrow. I'll be dropping my daughter off at school, hopefully celebrating a Bills win. But I got to shout out and thank the entire team here, Rob and Lucas on the 1s and 2s. Trader Pratt and Ms. V.
There's still 19 minutes left, Rob.
Kicking it as always. Special thanks. There it is. And Pratt, Mr. Risotto. Special thanks to Maggie, and hope that she is feeling better. Hopefully she'll be back tomorrow. We missed you there. And Natalie doing a fantastic job on social. We will see you guys tomorrow. Go Buffalo Bills. Please win.